What is going on, guys? Mike here with Chit Chat Wrestling on behalf of Chitty's World. First things first, I want to thank you all for checking out the video last week. Myself and Mick Wicked, Kevin, I had a great time just talking about ECW. So much so that I actually went back and started watching a lot of the ECW shows, even on Peacock as well too. Been kind of checking them out and getting back into it. But again, it was a great conversation. And this week, though, we have another good one. This week we have a guy who I've actually known for a long, long time here. He's been in the business for, I believe, about 20 years, if not more. Someone who I've looked up to as well, too, as far as getting into the wrestling business goes. Had a chance to work with him, had a chance to book him on a show. My very first indie show I ever went to in my whole entire life, this man was on it. So, again, I want to go in here and welcome in Latin Thunder Juan Fourneau to the show. Welcome on in, Juan.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks, Mike.
Going pretty good. One second here. All right. And I'm good with the whole Latin Thunder one. I know I asked you separately because before, kayfabe and stuff, but you've since then, lost the mask and everything, so we should be good.
Yes, absolutely. I lost my mask in, Máscara contra Cabellera, mask versus hair, and now I'm free to be able to say, hey, Juan Fourneau is Latin Thunder, the masked luchador. I couldn't get a good shot of it, but I did bring in my masks and one of them. So yeah, Juan Fourneau, Latin Thunder.
Heck yeah! All right, man. Well, first things first, dude. Like, how you been, and what the hell you been up to?
Good. Just doing all the suburban dad stuff. My son's in baseball, my daughter's in orchestra. Looking forward to summertime and trying really, really hard as a former independent professional wrestler, which often means selfish human being. Trying really, really hard to say, hey, you know what, Juan? Let's spend a little time on the kids and money on the kids, and even if that means giving up some of my own projects. I've been doing a little bit of writing, but that's been kind of inconsistent to be honest with you, and enjoying my food, hitting the weights and working out okay, but certainly not eating grilled chicken breast and rice and all that stuff you have to do a little stricter when you're an independent wrestler and having to go out and wrestle, take your shirt off in public, so.
Got to stay in that ring shape, but just in case, you never know.
You never know. Wrestlers are notorious, right?
And we'll definitely get into that because I want to talk to you about that. But first things first, I've heard, your story quite a bit. Obviously, mm-hmm. I've interviewed you before. We've talked and we've known each other for quite some time. But let's just start here, kind of in the beginning. You originally trained with Skandar Akbar out of Dallas, Texas, and you even had the chance to wrestle in the world famous Sportatorium. So go ahead and tell us a little about like how it got started, and has wrestling always been like your thing? Was this always your dream?
Yeah, I just fell in love with pro wrestling. When I was a kid back in the day in the early 80s, cable TV was still kind of new, and I discovered it on Channel 17, the Superstation, Georgia Championship Wrestling, and it just grabbed me, hooked me in a way that nothing else really ever has as far as any kind of passion. I love to work out and lift weights. I was always kind of into bodybuilding magazines, reading about Arnold and the Golden Era and Lee Haney and who Mr. Olympia was. I played some sports, and some I liked more than others. But yeah, pro wrestling was always the big thing in my life that I was passionate about. So yeah, when I was getting to be finishing up high school, thinking about what I wanted to do, it just kind of came to me as something that, possibly I could pursue being a pro wrestler. Of course, it was very hard to get into the business. It's always been difficult, that journey, no matter how you do it or when you do it. But in my era, before the internet really was common, it was just trying to find a wrestling school. I did catch a couple lucky breaks and getting some information on some wrestling schools. And one of them that wrote back was Skandar Akbar's wrestling school down in Dallas, Texas. So October 5th, 1994, I went down to Dallas and began training to be a pro wrestler there. And, from the magazines, I knew Texas was a great state that had a long history of pro wrestling. I knew all about the Von Erichs and the Sportatorium. And at that time, Global Wrestling was on ESPN. It kind of went out of business almost as soon as I started wrestling school. So that was bad. But there was still some promotions that were trying to run at the Sportatorium. Jim Crockett had actually tried to open up a little bit of an office and a promotion there with the NWA Texas. And that's where I did end up having my first match in Dallas, Texas at the Sportatorium, and I've always been very proud to just be part of that tiny little bit of history. You know, all the greats have always wrestled there.
Yeah.
Some of the greatest stars of all time, not just the Von Erichs, the Harley Races, the Luthazes, Buddy Rogers, Baron Von Raschke. I mean, the list goes on and on, you know, so always been very proud. But that's where my journey started.
That's awesome. And so did you ever, just curiosity, so did you ever get to meet any of the Von Erichs, like, you know, Eddie Gilbert or any, you know, Gordy, you know, P.S. Hayes, any of those guys? Did you ever get a chance to meet any of those while you're down in Dallas there?
Probably the biggest stars of Texas were a lot of the guys who were up and coming. JBL was breaking into the business at that time. John Bradshaw Layfield, who became a WWE star, he was wrestling down there as John Hawk. And he had actually beat Kevin Von Erich for the North American title, which was the title down there for the Sportatorium at that time when I was training. Yeah. Unfortunately, by the time that I had my first match, Kevin had already finished up wrestling. So I didn't get a chance to meet Kevin, but I did get to meet like Chris Adams, who was a big part of World Class. And I did get to go watch I was still training, but I went to see a spot show in Texas where not Michael Hayes, but it was Terry Gordy and Jimmy Garvin were wrestling as the Freebirds. So that was still kind of cool to see the Freebirds wrestle, especially Gordy in Texas. But yeah, there were still some wrestlers from that era of the glory days of World Class. So it was cool. And Jim Crockett ran a big show at that time where there was a lot of wrestlers there that I became starstruck seeing. The Rock and Roll Express were there. So for me, that was just a huge deal to see them, to meet them in person. Hercules Hernandez was on that show. Sam Houston, who I used to see on TV all the time, who was on the main event of the first indie show you went to see in Muscatine. That's how I was able to book Sam Houston, was meeting him down in Dallas and making those connections. So, yeah, there were still some people there that really made you feel like you were part of the wrestling business when you saw him walk in the locker room. Dick Murdoch, who was a big star in the 70s, former tag team partner of Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, was down there and a legendary wrestler, really one of the best pro wrestlers, workers, in-ring technicians of the 70s. So still a lot of legends there.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. So I had a chance to watch like some of the DVDs of like World Class Championship Wrestling. WWE put one out. And then there was another, like an independent company that put one out as well, too. I have both of them. And you're bringing up all these names, and it's just like, it's crazy because I go back and I watch those and stuff. And it's like, I didn't get to grow up in that time really too much. Sure. But going back and watching, I'm just like, you're bringing all these names up. What
did you think? Did you get to see the Iron Claw? What did you think of the Iron Claw?
Dude, I did. I did. I liked that. I wouldn't actually, I didn't get to go movie theater and see it, unfortunately, but I ended up watching it online, and now it's on Max. So. Yep. But yeah, I definitely want to talk to you about that here as well, too, because I got a couple questions on that. So next thing I want to go ahead and discuss, though, is I'm going to bring something up to you here that I know you've seen before. This is the infamous Seasons Beatings 98 VHS.
Wow.
Yeah, from the actual one. This is it.
Pretty old school.
When Dan the Man, I can't remember his last name, Dan, he worked out at the cable company. When he left, he messaged me and he's like, "Hey, I got some of these old wrestling tapes." We used to do like little backyard shows out there, and we'd air them on TV just for fun. And he's like, "I got all these tapes. Do you want them?" I don't know why he didn't message you for this, because I mean, I have it. Unfortunately,
wow, that's awesome. That's awesome that you have that.
Tracking on it, it's a little bit off, but it's still watchable. And luckily, I have a VCR still, so yeah, I got a chance to do that. And then I know I might show you this in the past, but here's the ticket for Renegade Rampage, the first show I've seen you on here in 98, and got some other ones. I have all of them, dude. River Slam. This was like something Meltdown. I can't remember what it was.
March Meltdown, probably.
Yeah, and then Thunderstruck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I bring these all up because I wanted to kind of talk about that. As I mentioned, my first experience, or my first time actually experience, be able to see a live independent show you were a part of. And a quick funny story here about that. This was with Midwest Championship Wrestling, by the way, which I believe later on ended up becoming IPW, or was part of IPW.
It was just a name that, honestly, I just needed a name for the promotion for the show, and I just was like, Midwest Championship Wrestling it is. So
we went down that route too, and
Yep.
we did that show. We were thinking about making like a name for it. So anyways, crazy enough, man. It's funny because back in the day, this is like back in like what, it was in 98. So at that time, the Attitude Era was really hot and stuff, and it wasn't cool to cheer the good guys. It was cool to boo the good guys, and you cheer the heels. And
there was some of that going on at that time. Yes,
that was us, because when at the show, because when you came out, believe it or not, we booed the hell out of you.
You booed the hometown guy.
Yes, and it wasn't because I didn't even know who you were at the time, but
Sure.
there was like 6-7 of us went as a group, and it was just a cool thing to do, was to boo the faces. That was just what it was.
Michael Hayes used to do that down in Florida when he was a fan too. So that's something that people do. Yeah.
Yeah. With that being said, I want to go ahead and talk about that. Like, as far as your experiences, wrestling locally and stuff, how cool was that to be able to wrestle in your own hometown, obviously, but then be able to bring wrestling, because at that time wrestling wasn't a thing around here for many years, and then it kind of died off. Then of course we saw the Ritters come in with NWA, and then when that died off, we brought in MXWA, and then IPW came in here and there too. So, but how was that to be able to wrestle locally?
It was just really hard to do. And honestly, the biggest reason I ran those shows was just so that I could get some experience and make some contacts. I did think that, they would draw. I was hoping to break even or make a little money. I lost money on the first show, the Renegade Rampage show, because I ran it Brilliant Move, in August. It's a terrible time of year to run an indoor show, but I didn't know any better. Seasons Beatings, the one you have the tape of, did much better.
Yeah, it did.
I think we drew over 300 people there, but it was wintertime, and that was a hot show. Yeah, it was a great crowd. It was a hot show, and we did not have nearly as big of a name, because the first show, Renegade Rampage, we had the one-man gang who was a big star, and a big name. So I just remember just doing those shows. They were a lot of hard work, and just trying to make contacts with those shows, trying to meet other wrestlers and help people know about me as well, and hoping that those connections would lead to me being able to wrestle on other shows as well. So it was a little hit and miss. I had some success with that, and did make some contacts, but it turned out to just be fun shows with, a lot of memories. Because I know some of to ask you a question. When you saw on the poster that the one-man gang was going to be there, were you thinking, hey, this guy's not going to be there, he's not going to show up? I mean, what were your thoughts at that time?
Well, yeah, because I remember Bob Orton was on there originally, I think, and he didn't show up.
Yeah,
it might have been that one. I can't.
It was later. We had hoped to get Bob Orton on a show.
Yeah,
I think it was the following year at Central. He had to cancel, and I talked to his son, Randy Orton, on the phone. Yeah. Randy Orton called me up and said, "Hey, my dad's not going to be able to make the show."
That's right.
But and then we got Marty Jannetty as a last-minute replacement, which was actually he was a bigger star, to be honest with you, as far as for our era in that time. But yeah, I mean, I think, especially that first show, there were a lot of people that were like, the one-man gang's not the Muscatine, but then there he was, we brought him in, and I think that helped establish, a little bit of a reputation that, hey, if we said someone was going to be there, they were, and we had the ability to get some independent names to Muscatine. And Muscatine's a great wrestling town, right? I mean, you know that, and it's a blue-collar town, and people love the wrestling, and especially in that time period, people are starved for live entertainment, and it gave an opportunity for just a good night's entertainment for people, at an affordable price. So, yeah,
I still got the one-man gang. His little finger tape came off his tape, and I have it. I still have it in a little baggie. I kept it. That's how big of a mark I was for that.
Of course, I
still have all your guys' the brochures. What do you call them?
The posters and the programs.
The programs. Oh my God! Yeah. I still have. They're on a collage right now on the wall, so I don't want to take them down. But I have all of them still.
Yeah, I'm glad someone kept them. I'm glad someone has a copy of Seasons Beatings. There was a great match there with the Kamikaze Kid against James the Bear Grizzly, and I remember how hot the crowd was. They hated Kamikaze, and he had so much heat that night, and that was part of the process too. Was that seeing the heat he had, I was just like, wow, this guy is really connecting with the audience, and helped me learn and understand more as a performer to see what he was able to do. And it just began that process of trying to learn the business of, hey, why this guy got heat? And even the one-man gang, it was really something when he came out. I mean, there was a difference in the reaction when he came out, not just among the people who knew who he was, but his gear, the way he looked, the show he put on, how loud he was, how boisterous he was. Yeah. It just showed, hey, he's a main event guy. And again, it starts planting that seed to make you realize, oh, well, man, I'm kind of boring, or I'm not really that good. I got a lot of work to do, So yeah, those were definitely learning good times, and I learned a lot,
As far as later on, you decided to work under a mask at that point. What was the decision for that?
Big thing was I was getting tired of being the heel. I had wrestled as kind of a Mexican heel who would go out and cut a promo in Spanish, and then cut the promo also in English and insult the fans and just try to get them to chant USA, USA, USA. And I got to wrestle Hacksaw Jim Duggan, which was great. And the crowd was chanting USA, USA. And I did my job as a heel. But as the years were going by, fans weren't really, even today you see that, where there isn't really that evil, foreigner character where the crowd's chanting USA. That's kind of a bygone era. I think it could be done at times, maybe again in the future, but it was getting to be an old stick. And you'd go to towns like Muscatine or Cedar Rapids or Iowa City, and a lot of times people would hear me speak Spanish, and they're like, well, some of my best friends are Hispanic, or hey, I wish I spoke Spanish. I mean, times had changed, and I wanted to kind of started thinking about being a good guy, and I was getting older. You can be in shape, but you can't hide the face. You can be in shape, you can still wrestle, you can still be a good athlete, but you can't hide that face. And you're wrestling someone. As the business kept evolving with independent wrestling, the wrestlers were getting younger and younger, and I was getting older and older. But here I was in the ring trying to wrestle someone that was a baby face, 20, 22-year-old, literally baby face. And I looked old, and that's fine if you're a heel, but if you're going to be a good guy, gosh, typically the older looking guy, a little bit heavier, overweight, is beating up that young baby face, that good looking young guy. So it just wasn't going to work. So I just came up with the idea to become a Mexican luchador but do something different. I wasn't going to just go out there with some cheap Mil Máscaras mask or a Rey Mysterio mask or any mask. I wanted to create my own character, and it evolved into something that I thought would sell some tickets and make me marketable. And it did. It took a while, but it did catch on. And I think people began to see that, that evolution, that, hey, what, this is something that's a character. And going back to your earlier questions about the independent shows, you might remember, you might not. I don't know if you went to some of those shows, but there were some shows where I tried to book luchadors, Mexican luchadors out of Chicago. Mexican wrestlers that I had met when I trained in Chicago and worked out a little bit. I was on some lucha shows in Chicago, indie shows, and I met guys who were Mexican wrestlers from Mexico and then immigrated to Chicago, made a home for themselves, but like me, wrestled on the weekends. So I was intrigued by that, and I booked some Mexican wrestlers like 3 times on independent shows in Muscatine. They didn't really get super over with the crowd. And here I was trying to bring some lucha. I think in a way, what I kind of ended up doing was creating what I wanted in the first place, which was a Mexican luchador who spoke English and Spanish, who could work with anyone in that locker room that was full of American wrestlers. And so I was intrigued by that concept of bringing that luchador in, but I couldn't quite figure out how to make it work. And then in a way, I wasn't thinking that, but I think what I ended up doing was creating what I was trying to book, but couldn't find, so that's kind of how it worked out.
Nice. All right. And then I remember on AEW, just like recently, I don't know if you still catch or watch the product or not, but they brought in some of the CMLL guys and stuff, and they got over, but of course most fans aren't really going to know who they are. Without run like a VO package, or, some will, but in certain areas and such. But again, they brought them in and they tried it. And since then they haven't really brought them back, but tried.
It's hard when they can't cut promos in English.
Yep.
And you'll see that, with WWE, they do have some Mexican luchadors who speak really good English and are able to connect with the fans. You know, obviously we can talk about Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah.
There have been Latino wrestlers that have really drawn money and connected well. Lucha was a big part of their wrestling style. They knew how to work American style and Japanese style as well. But the fact that they could speak English allowed them to express themselves, communicate themselves.
Yep.
One of the people that I really, when I was trying to come up with the Latin Thunder character, you know, I based a lot of it on Mil Máscaras, who is an older legendary wrestler. But in the 70s especially, you know, Mil was a superstar. And many people, I agree with it, many Mexican wrestlers say he's the greatest ambassador of Lucha Libre to the world. So, like, if you look at who brought Lucha to Japan, it was Mil Máscaras. Who brought it to all the territories in California and Texas and Florida? Who was the first masked wrestler to wrestle at Madison Square Garden? It was Mil Máscaras. So a lot of times, the first time Japan and the United States territories, the AWA, we're talking the 70s and 80s, first time they ever saw a luchador or Mexican lucha libre, true Mexican lucha libre, was from Mil Máscaras. Well, Mil could speak English, not amazing English, but he could speak English. That allowed him to connect with promoters, to book himself all over the world, to be able to talk to other guys. He had good size as well, so he was able to match up with the superstar Billy Grahams, the Harley Races. A lot of Mexican wrestlers, especially that era, didn't have that size. Ray changed the business, obviously, by showing that a smaller guy could draw money and be a world champion. But yeah, I mean, that's key. Being able to speak English helps you. Well, it'll be interesting to see if there'll be a superstar who's able to really connect and get over without being able to speak English. So, but yeah.
That's one thing with like Andrade. You know, he doesn't speak very good English. He does, but it's then you got a guy like you know, like Santos Escobar, who's really good at speaking English. It's stuff like that, you know, and Dragon Lee and so forth, you know, and it's just, so I get exactly what you're saying now. And I believe in 2014, I think it was, you came out with your book. Am I correct?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. And it's Latin Thunder's My Journey Off the Top Rope, available on Amazon Prime.
Yep.
And if you have the Kindle app, which I do, it's on there as well too. So I have started reading this. I started a while back, and then I'm like, I want to finish this. So I did start reading it again here. So very good so far. I won't spend too much time on this, but like, what was your, you know, take back on like the process of writing a book?
You know, this just keeps going back to that first question about indies, the early indie days, because I met Matt Murphy, who I got to wrestle for Harley Race for WLW, the great Harley Race, which was a huge honor to go home and hear on my answering phone, on my answering machine back in the day, on that little tape, that gravelly voice of Harley Race wanting to book me. Why did he want to book me? Because he needed a Hispanic wrestler in California, Missouri, one who could speak Spanish, one who could do an interview in Spanish on the radio station. So again, a little nugget that planted a seed of, hey, Juan, there's something different about you. You can speak English and Spanish. That's helpful. But Matt Murphy was the very first graduate of Harley Race's wrestling school. And Matt was a very good independent wrestler, good high flyer. And he wrote a book. He self-published a book. And that really opened my eyes to say, you know what, our stories matter too, just like what you're doing. You know, independent wrestling has really grown for the last 10, 15 years, that it's legit. And a lot of the stars of pro wrestling started in independent wrestling. Tyler Black, Seth Rollins, you know, local Quad City, Buffalo, Iowa native that we've had connections with. So independent wrestling matters too. And Matt writing that book helped me think, well, you know, maybe my story's worth telling as well. And and I had always been a big reader and had dabbled a little, very little, but a little bit in writing. And wrote some stories for the local paper, et cetera. And I thought, well, I'll give it a try. You know, all about the do-it-yourself attitude, right? I mean, that's the beauty of living in the times, the world that we live in now, is that if you want to self-publish a book, you can do that. There's not as many barriers as there used to be. Right.
And I agree. I looked into it before too. So definitely something I may do, you know, down the road, but I will finish the book. I promise.
That's all right.
On my Kindle. I just have this one bad thing where here's me starting a book. I read it, and then like 2 minutes later,
it's tough.
I'm sleeping, dude. It's horrible.
I was a voracious reader when I was younger. And in my 20s, I read a lot. In my 30s, and YouTube and different videos, and it changed how I learn. Now
Yeah.
if you know that you can listen to Warren Buffett give a speech or a talk or an interview with Warren Buffett, instead of, back in the day, the only way you could learn about Warren Buffett was to go to the library and pick up a book, and so I think that's part of it too, not just our attention spans, but
yeah, it's not because it's boring. It's just because I'm just so tired by the time night comes. I'm just like, no matter what I'm reading, a comic book or whatever it may be, because I read a lot of graphic novels and stuff. And dude, I just anymore. I just can't stay awake. But I'm gonna finish it because it's definitely interesting where I've gotten so far with it. Now, speaking of like Tyler Black, aka Seth Rollins, Marek Brave, you've had a chance to work SCW over the years, and I've been catching all your, everything you posted online and stuff. Unfortunately, I don't get to go to a lot of the shows and stuff. Things come up, whatnot. Mm-hmm. But how has that been? I mean, as far as working with them, or how was it? I guess I should say.
It was a great run, and it was honestly the best part of my independent wrestling career was working for SCW Pro. I mean, to have a good local promotion that was so. Michael Hayes, you talked about Michael P.S. Hayes. They asked him, "Hey, what did you love about World Class?" And he said, the crowds were hot, the money was good, and the drives were short. And obviously SCW Pro is not like I'm making a fortune, but the money was good. Yeah. The drives were short and the crowds were hot and the wrestlers were good. I got to wrestle very good independent wrestlers. And then when Black and Brave opened up the wrestling school in Davenport, Iowa, run by Marek Brave and Seth Rollins, you started to see young, talented, athletic, ambitious young people, men and women, come from all over the world and all over the country to train at that place. And I compare it to Gold's Gym in the 1970s, where you had all these legends that were working out in this tiny little building. There really wasn't that big of a big deal if you look at the building, but inside there's so much energy in that gym. And to see and to be around young people chasing their dream, who are so ambitious and paying the price, it was so much fun to have some of those guys and girls, their first match with them, getting to go to the gym and work out with them and show them a little bit, being a mentor to some of them. It was very satisfying getting to wrestle as SCW grew and Black and Brave grew. I got to wrestle on bigger crowds, bigger shows. It was just fantastic. It really was. I wish it could have went on and on. I wish it wouldn't have ended, but time, as what does Rocky say? Time is undefeated. So Father Time is undefeated
all the time.
Yeah, because I was having just the most fun, and it was a great run, and I was treated well too. By the promotion, Marek Brave, and all the different people who booked the shows. They always treated me well, and again, the drives were short, so that was nice.
Yeah, Matt has reached out to me several times about video and shows and such. I'm like, I need to start getting up there, especially when you were there and such. And it's always a good time. And I still always brag to this day. You know what? I gotta work some shows with Seth freaking Rollins, and I gotta do this, I gotta do that. My kids can't believe it because they watch wrestling. Yeah, like, are you serious? I'm like, I gotta do all this and that. And then Nathan Frazier, he's at NXT now. He was trained. I saw him in a match down here in town, and back I think it was back here in Great River Day or something like that. Anyway, I saw him, and again, it's just cool, like you said, just to be able, like, you have amazing talent, and just to be able to see these guys grow into the business, and that's just awesome.
Yeah, and that show that Nathan Frazier was on, I remember that. It was right before COVID hit. It was February, and it was a great show, right. And we had great talent there, great young talent. Yeah, and wasn't Ziggy Dice on that show too? I think.
Yep, Ziggy was on there.
Yeah, Ziggy was on there. So it was just a great crowd, a great night of action and wrestling at an affordable price, and people got to see some future superstars. And I bet you there's still people that, when you look at that show, there still might be one or two people who end up being big stars that were on that show. So just, very satisfying, a lot of fun, and I'm very grateful that I just, stepped out of my box a little bit, because I still had to knock on the door, and say, hey, would you guys be interested in using me? And they talked business too, which I liked. They were like, hey, we think you can sell some tickets for us, and they respected what I brought to the table. And I also, at that stage in my career, knew to stay in my lane. They booked the show, they booked the show. I was there to wrestle my match. What do you need me to do tonight? What are we trying to get done? And I'm going to do that, So it was just it was a great time, and being in there with safe wrestlers also.
Oh yeah, it makes a difference.
It took care of my body and respected that, hey, they were wrestling a 48, 49-year-old guy.
yeah. I mean, they respect you so much that they put you in the Hall of Fame there.
Yeah,
which was freaking awesome. I saw that and I was just like, here's a picture here.
Yep.
And I was like, this is cool. So much so like he's in the Hall of Fame. And then this was, prior to this though, November of 2022, you had your retirement match.
Yep.
And you lost your mask at that time. So, what was the decision for this? Was it just, it was time, in wrestling, wrestlers are known for retiring and then come back out of retirement, retiring, come back out, like a guys like Ric Flair and such and so forth. But, is this really it for you as far as wrestling?
The big thing with me at that time was being Latin Thunder, putting on the mask, learning more and more about Lucha Libre, trying to, again, be different. What can I bring to the table that other people can't? I was always intrigued by that Máscara contra Cabellera, mask versus hair match, which is legendary in Mexico and Lucha Libre. And so I knew once the very first day I wrestled with that mask on and I created that character, I knew I was going to lose that mask in a match, and I was going to lose it I was always looking, who is a young Hispanic wrestler who has earned this, who's worked hard, and who I can give
pass
this
the torch.
Exactly. Pass the torch, give a great match to. So I was looking, and Kevin Guiterres, Corn Boy, he checked all those boxes. He was Hispanic. He was from Chicago. He spoke English. He spoke Spanish. He'd worked hard, trained at Black and Brave. We were tag partners, and he kept working. He kept getting better and better. And so the big thing was I wanted to have that match. And I wasn't, that wasn't technically my retirement match. It was going to be, hey, this is a match, mask versus hair. It was kind of frustrating, to be honest with you, because when we announced the match, I had several people who knew me and who were friends with me say, oh, well, I know you're not going to lose. I know you're not going to lose. And I was just like, man, that's not good. And, just to give you a little behind the scenes stuff that was going on is it was like, I was telling the promoters, hey, there are people who don't think I'm going to lose the mask. And they were like, well, that's good. They'll be surprised when they find out that you lost. I said, yeah, they're going to find out I lost on home at Twitter because they didn't go buy a ticket because they thought I wasn't going to lose my mask. Let me ask you, did you think I was going to lose the mask?
Not really. No.
Exactly.
No.
So if you don't know, like that's the beauty of a match. You have to build up a match to a point where you're like, I don't know what's going to happen, but something's going to happen and I need to buy a ticket. And we did. It took us a while, but I think we did that last week. We pushed it hard, turned it into a true mask versus hair match, cut some good promos. We had a great crowd, huge house. And it did end up being standing room only toward the end because people were wondering, hey, who's going to win and who's going to lose? Because if Kevin Cornboy loses, he's got a great head of hair. That's the other thing. I was just like, hey, he's got a great head of hair. We're going to shave his hair or Latin Thunder unmasked, and we're going to deliver. So that was the thought. And I wanted to still be young enough and in shape enough to have it be a great match, a physical match, but a great match that delivered. It's on YouTube. It's on SCW Pro. I hope people can check it out. I'm proud of that match. I'm proud that we had a great reaction, and I'm proud that we didn't kill each other. We weren't out there with crazy moves, breaking tables, putting our bodies in tremendous danger. We just had a good, hard-nosed wrestling match, and you can do that if you're in shape and if you have some talent and if you work hard and you're skilled, and that's what we did.
Yeah, I checked the match. Kevin Mick Wicked, he was at that show.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but I've seen it on YouTube too, and I'll link that down in the description here too, so people can go check it out. Absolutely. Another thing here is I never even heard of this place, and I've done a lot of film stuff, obviously, and I was part of the the Independent Film Festival and everything around here. But the Last Picture House, I seen that you had attended the Iron Claw there. Yeah. Which I didn't know was a thing. The other day I was on their website and they're showing Twister outside. And I'm like, what? Twister's like my favorite movie, and they're gonna show it outside on the rooftop. I'm like, I gotta go check this place out. So, but how was that? I mean, how was that experience?
So you probably know more about the owners of the theater than I do, but they're Hollywood directors and screenwriters, and very acclaimed, and they're local Quad City guys.
Mm-hmm.
So excuse me. So they have that theater that they opened up, and they just happened to, because of their connections with the studio of A24, they were able to get a screening of the Iron Claw before it even was released nationwide, awesome. Which was incredible. Mm-hmm. And if you signed up for their subscription service, then you were able to get a ticket to the Iron Claw if you were able to land it. And I did.
Sure.
I signed up for it, and I did go to the premiere that night with my son. And again, it was just brought back a lot of great memories of Texas wrestling, the Von Erichs. It's a tremendous movie. You know, you're a movie buff. You've wrote screenplays. So, you know, like the bar of wrestling movies is very low, right? There's never been. So to call it the greatest.
No Holds Bar.
Yeah, I mean, there's The Wrestler, which was a good movie, and then there's some really bad ones that one WCW made.
Ready to Rumble. Oh.
There you go. Yeah, terrible. So, you know, to call it the greatest movie about wrestling ever made, again, low bar, but it really treated the story well, and it was fascinating to watch because I was talking to a friend of mine at work about the movie. To me, it also showed how amazing pro wrestling is because here you have some of the best looking Hollywood actors they could find, and they weren't as good looking as the Von Erichs. They didn't look as good as the Von Erichs. They didn't have the charisma the Von Erichs have. You have an actor playing Ric Flair, and I thought the actor did, honestly, I didn't think he did too bad. And then they have the music in the background. The director did as the best he could. But to me, it showed how special Ric Flair is. Go try to find Ric Flair. He don't exist. He's a unique human being.
It's true.
How many people can cut a promo, look like that, have the charisma, and have a body? And he's not even a body guy, but it shows you how special pro wrestling was. The actor who played Kerry Von Erich, he did great as an actor. Great actor.
Yeah.
But tried to look like Kerry Von Erich. Good luck. You know, I mean, it just shows you how special the top stars of pro wrestling are. They're hard to recreate, you know, and Hollywood can't even do it. So I was just proud of pro wrestling, Texas wrestling, Von Erichs. It really was. It was fun to watch it, and to be there with my son was really cool. So
I had friends and stuff, and people messaging me saying they cried during it, and they didn't watch wrestling, but they went and saw it because they thought it looked good. And of course, it's just like wrestling. If it could tell a good story, then you know that's all that matters. And it did, and it did that just perfectly. And Zac Efron, dude, that dude got buff as hell.
He looked tremendous, didn't he?
Great, yeah.
And there's pictures of him on the red carpet with Kevin. And Kevin still, even at his advanced age, is taller than Zac Efron. And he did. Zac Efron did fantastic. Fantastic. Did. And he got in tremendous shape. And he was the one who most closely resembled and made you believe, heck, I'm watching Kevin Von Erich. You know, you got lost in that, you know. And it was a little, the guy who played David did fantastic too. The actor who played Fritz, I really believed, hey, that's Fritz Von Erich, a rough, gruff, large, intimidating man, you know, who he was portrayed pretty rough in the movie. It's amazing how many people who don't follow wrestling tell me, man, you know, he was a terrible dad, or I didn't like him, I hated that guy. It's hard to tell that whole story in that Hollywood movie and have it run 2 hours, whatever it ran. But you know, Fritz had a soft spot. I wrote a little piece about watching the Iron Claw, and Dusty Rhodes did a shoot interview, and he said, when, you know, Dusty Rhodes is from Austin, Texas, and Fritz helped break him into the wrestling business. And when Dusty Rhodes' father died, you know, the son of the plumber, the American dream, when his dad died, Fritz Von Erich gave him $800 so he could go home and bury his dad and pay for the funeral expenses. He lent him that money, and he says, don't worry about paying me back until you can. And then, of course, he became the American dream and a big star, and he went back and paid Fritz back. But so he had a soft heart, and he did have a soft spot, and he helped a lot of people. Hacksaw Jim Duggan spoke really well of Fritz when I wrestled Duggan. Said he had a lot of love and respect for him, and Fritz broke him into the wrestling business. But obviously, great movie, amazing family, what a dynasty. Hopefully, Tarek going back to the indie show again in West Liberty. March,
Ooh.
whatever it was.
Oh my God.
Hector Guerrero was in the main event of that show in West Liberty.
That's a fairground, right?
Someday what's that?
That's at the fairgrounds, right?
Yep, at the West Liberty Fairgrounds. Yeah, Hector was one of my favorite wrestlers and one of my favorite Guerreros. So hopefully someday we get to see something about the Guerrero wrestling family, because to me they also are an amazing family who deserve recognition, and their story should be told. Hopefully someone tells it. So
yeah, I don't think we'll be seeing the McMahon story anytime soon, but yeah, man, I could pick your brain all day, dude. I always love talking to you. We need to definitely get together and do lunch again. Just talk wrestling and life and kids
and movies.
Movies. Yeah. I'm trying to get back into it, dude. I want to do some more stuff, but we'll get there. Maybe we can work together on that. We book shows together. Who knows? Maybe we'll do a movie together.
I do know this, though. I'm probably not doing much until my kids graduate high school. So I got for the next 4 or 5 years. You know what? I'm raising my kids, and they're coming first because so many times they came in second. And
I understand.
You've got a big family, and you're a great father, and it's always fun to work on our stuff. But I just finally am like, you know what? I'm trying to write a fictional book, and I actually finished it. I just need to finish the editing, but I'm forgiving myself. I'm like, hey, I got a lot going on right now, and I'm trying to put my kids first, and I had certainly the last 9 years of being Latin Thunder under the mask. I got to do my own thing, and my wife and kids supported me and gave me a lot of leeway. And it's time for me to let them be number one for a little while. So,
yeah, at least till they graduate, and then we make Latin Thunder Juan Fourneau the freaking movie, and we show it here in town, premiere it. Boom, perfect, we got it.
Lucha Libre movies were a thing for a long time, El Santo and all those lucha movies.
I've seen some.
They're a thing, and they need to be brought back. So
never know, right?
Yeah, you never know. But I don't know if I can still get in shape at 51, but to get in shape at
it'd be what,
55, 56, 57. We'll see.
Right. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you for hanging out with me, dude. It's always fun to catch up. And like I said, we definitely need to do this again. Maybe have you come back on, and then I don't know if you still watch the product today or not, WWE, AEW, or what have you.
A little bit, yeah.
Talk about that. I'm going to be doing that a lot here too. So, but yeah, I appreciate you for hanging out, man. And like I said, it's always fun to talk to you, and we will definitely have to have you back on here again. So.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And thanks for the old memories. Brought back a lot of old memories there. Good ones.
Heck yeah, man. And I'll, like I said, I'll be in touch, because we definitely, like I said, need to make some time, even if it's for a lunch.
Yeah.
Just to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to get together, socialize. No problem.
All right, brother. Take it easy. It was nice talking to you, man.
Take it easy, man. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Later. All right, guys. So there you have it. Latin Thunder Juan Fourneau. Very good guy. Great wrestler. Like I said, a huge story there to tell. If you want to learn more about him, I'll link some of those matches down below here. But also, again, just he's been through, done a lot in the business. Like I said, you've seen it, whether it's wrestling, whether it's doing these premieres and such as well too. Working on a book. Again, sky's the limit. There's much more to come. And yes, I thank you guys again for tuning in for this special interview. Next week we will have Chief Atakula Kula, who is a very good friend of mine, on here as well too. He's also a former pro wrestler for many, many years, and we'll definitely be picking his brain. So again, make sure you guys like this video if you choose to. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and make sure you turn on that bell notification, because we have all things that is Chit Chat Gaming. Chit Chat Wrestling. I'm so used to saying gaming. Chit Chat Wrestling here on Chitty's World. And as always, guys, we'll see you on the next one.